November, when it emerges from the glare of the sun, because for as long as it's within the glare of the sun, it's like looking into a car headlights. We can't get a clear read. And of course, because this is such a unique and unprecedented event, we don't have it in our regular ephemeris or software packages. So big shout out and thanks to Stefan for that and for sharing it with us. Now, both Stefan and Heather have done really excellent videos looking at this, and but each of us as astrologers are going to be adding our personal flavour to it. So I think this video will share different information, and take your pick or accept all of them wherever you're at. So it is a very powerful chart, which we'll see in a moment. I personally don't, as I've mentioned before, think it's a comet. I don't even think it's a craft, really. I believe it's something energetic. I believe it carries very high intelligence and higher consciousness. It's a consciousness being of some kind. And Kelly Kolodny's wonderful channeling with Archangel Raphael has really reinforced that. And we had a fabulous conversation a short time ago, and I'll put the link for that below as well. And Archangel Raphael was really talking about Three-Eye Atlas seeding this new galactic consciousness that Raphael has talked so consistently about, that is going to be birthed at the Capricorn solstice. So it's immensely exciting. You know, if that's the case, we are in the thick of the chrysalis right now, and it is immensely exciting. But let me show you the chart, and then I'll share some insights, astrological perspectives on what I think this is all about. I'm going to try and stick broadly to the position of Three-Eye Atlas and the aspects it is making in this chart, because of course we have the new moon on the 21st of October, and then we have another full moon coming up on the 5th of November. So this is in between those, and but it's very interesting in itself. So let me share the chart here. Okay, so this is set for the 29th of October, and according to Stefan, this is happening at 11:55, just round about noon GMT. And this is based on England. So ignore the clock face, because that's specific to England, well, that Britain. Just look at the signs where the planets fall and their aspects to each other. So we see Three-Eye Atlas here at 22 degrees, 45 minutes of Libra. Okay, so it's conjunct Venus here. And the first thing we notice is that it's in a very strong T-square. In fact, it's almost a cardinal grand cross, because it is conjunct Venus, which we'll talk about in a moment, square to Jupiter at 24 of Cancer, tightly opposing Chiron and Eris, 24, 25 of Aries. This corner is slightly, well, it's out of sign, but if Pluto was still backed up into Capricorn in the final few degrees, you could see it would be a cardinal grand cross. So we can just about allow Pluto being the rather squiffy fourth corner of a cardinal grand cross. Remember that we give the designation of cardinal according to the dominant three corners, let's say. That's the easiest way to express it. So let me start first of all with the opposition here, because the opposition between Three-Eye Atlas and Chiron and Eris is very tight. Now, I've talked previously often about Chiron being the wounded healer, the wound being in the I am, so it's very much linked to victim consciousness, which I think many of us have lived through in this lifetime, in fact, many lifetimes. And Eris is the sister of Mars, the warrior sister of Mars, very feisty energy, wasn't invited to the wedding at Mount Olympus, turned up anyway and created mayhem. She stands for truth, honesty, justice, total social inclusion, nobody excluded. And I think I talked in the last update about how both Chiron and Eris actually represent mavericks. They are mavericks in the system. They're the ones that don't fit. Chiron, partly because it's in an orbit in between Saturn and Uranus, and there's a sense of the outsider. Equally, that is true very much in the mythology of Eris, very much. And also, Eris has a 560-year orbit and has an extreme inclination to the ecliptic of 44 degrees. It really is the maverick. And so is 3i Atlas. I mean, what a maverick. We don't know what it is, where it's come from. Archangel Raphael says it's billions of years old. This slingshot from eternity, we have no idea of its source, or I do believe it's deeply purposeful, actually, but quite extraordinary that it's tightly inclined to the ecliptic within 5 degrees, as is Comet Swan, which is going to be closest to the Earth on the 21st of October. We have a very intense period here. So it's very interesting that the three mavericks, let's call them, 3i Atlas, Chiron, and Eris, are so tightly geometrically connected. Because in our society, the people who bring in the new ideas are not the people who are in the mainstream. It's the mavericks, the trailblazers, the pioneers, the outsiders, the rule breakers. They're the people who bring in the new ideas to society. And so I think that's a big, big theme here of what this is about. Breaking old patterns, pattern interrupt. So, and as I say, Archangel Raphael talks about 3i Atlas as the seeding of this new galactic consciousness, which is so exciting. Now, that opposition is squared by Jupiter. Jupiter, very happy in Cancer, exalted to do with self-care, nurturing, care for self, but also care for others, instinctively understanding what people need to feel nurtured and included. There's a motherly feeling about this. It's like a mother hen that everybody needs to be taken care of. However, because Jupiter expands anything it touches, it is going to expand everything I've just said about that opposition. It's going to expand the previous sense of victimhood and exclusion and not fitting and being different, but it's also, as fertilizer with that, is going to expand the incredible potential for what I believe 3 Atlas is all about, which is this seeding of a much higher consciousness. And if we were just about to include Pluto, the moon is too wide here, but just about to include Pluto and Jupiter, well, together in combination, they're very much about leadership, actually. And so you could say that Pluto in Aquarius, and I believe this profoundly, is about a new kind of leadership. Leadership which is based on equability, on more horizontal socio-political structure, on freedom. Go back to the videos I was making in 2023 about Pluto moving into Aquarius. I was talking about human rights, civil rights, etc. And the other side of that, of course, is increasing digitization. But so this can potentially give us a big future vision of a different kind of leadership going forwards that involves the people, the moon. And remember, Pluto is out of bounds to the south until November the 23rd. And I've talked a great deal about that as being more revolutionary behavior from the people. And that's exactly what you're seeing here. This is also great intensity being being felt by the people around issues of freedom, human rights, civil rights, etc. So this opposition between Jupiter and Pluto can actually go one way or the other. It can go towards greater control from the top, because Pluto can also represent state control and increasing technology, which we can see in Aquarius here, or, depending on where humanity is at and where their focus and choices lie, it can go towards a very different visionary future. And there's so much to say here, because Jupiter is actually in this trine. It's actually a grand trine, an equilateral triangle here, which is very fortuitous. So Jupiter trine to Neptune is about the big dream for the future, the bigger horizon, the more idealistic, more idealistic social structure. I'm thinking of Saturn here. Saturn is to do with pragmatism and what's realistic and building for the long term. So Saturn is actually very helpful in this. It isn't just pie in the sky with ideas. And this is very mystical as well. Jupiter, Neptune, very mystical. And it's also connecting here to Mars. So it's Mars, Jupiter, Saturn principally, but also including Neptune in this grand trine. So Mars in Scorpio gives tremendous focus, kind of laser beam focus, commitment, dedication. Scorpio is a very spiritual sign along with Pisces. Jupiter was the ancient ruler of Pisces. So we have a sense of tremendous focus, energy, dedication, care for others, that is more idealistic, that's more inclusive, that's more realistic, building for the long term where everyone is cared for. That grand trine has the potential for that. Three-Eye Atlas is also conjunct, by the way, it's also conjunct the fixed star constellation of Arcturus, which is at 24 degrees of Libra. And Arcturus, I mean, the Arcturians give us so much in terms of higher intelligence, but Arcturus is really seen as the gateway to higher consciousness. The gateway to higher consciousness. Isn't that interesting that Three-Eye Atlas currently, or on October 29th, will be conjunct Arcturus. It's also conjunct Venus here, very happy in its own sign of Libra, its sign of rulership, which is really beautiful. And what's interesting as well is Three-Eye Atlas will be at its closest point to Venus on the 3rd of November, just a few days from now. And Venus in Libra is again, it's inclusive, it's love for all, it's concern for all. And its love is expressing in a very harmonious way and a very balanced way. And I also feel, actually, that it will bring in much greater love for each other. I think as Three-Eye Atlas passes each planet, it will positively amplify the archetypal symbolism of that planet. That's what I feel. Also, we have the Sun here at this point, conjunct Haumea. I mean, beautiful at this point of perihelion, because perihelion means that Three-Eye Atlas is at its closest point to the Sun on the 29th of October. And so the Sun here is, in fact, it's very interesting. It's conjunct Haumea. Haumea is very much about regeneration, as you know from its mythology. It's about rebirth. In its mythology, it was said to, in its fire goddess expression, birth the 8 islands of Hawaii. I think we could see more seismic activity around this time. And it's one of the big, big symbols we have for New Earth. And Alan Clay believes that Haumea is the symbol for unity consciousness, the dwarf planet that represents unity consciousness. So it's tightly conjunct the sun here, and also you could just about include it in an out of sign conjunction to 3i Atlas, but principally it's conjunct the sun. So it's also about community, 3i Atlas, because another aspect of its mythology, which I've mentioned in the past, is about how the community came together against the autocratic leader who was going to put Haumea's partner to death for taking some wild bananas from the land. And so it brings in community, as does this Aquarian energy of Moon Pluto. I think the way forwards as we move into 2026 is very much going to be about community. That will be the shift from each of us kind of being boxed up in our individual homes or in our family units to come together as families of frequency, in your soul tribe, if you like, to start to form a very different society, which is much more loving and inclusive. And our values will change very significantly. Our values, I think, are going to be much more about love and sharing, Venus in Libra, rather than how much money in your bank account. That will just become less and less important. Now, we also have, very importantly, Uranus in an exact 20 minutes from exactitude in exact opposition to Mercury. I think this is very interesting indeed, because when you have any aspect, particularly a hard aspect between Uranus and Mercury, and remember that Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury, it's to do with higher mind, it's to do with the outsider, it's to do with the galactic. It can bring in brilliant new ideas, out-of-the-box solutions. It's revolutionary, it's visionary, it's futuristic, it's about awakening, it's about truth, it's about clarity. It's that kind of spark of absolute piercing clarity about where our future is going, what the truth is, perhaps clarity on the past, but also where we're going. Because Uranus, along with Jupiter, they're both planets linked to truth and the future, and Jupiter rules Sagittarius, which is very much about, the future vision. And Jupiter is also in trine to Mercury, in an out-of-sign trine. Uranus is conjunct the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters, and the Pleiades are typically all about love. They are at 29 degrees of Pisces, which on the 8th of November, Uranus is going to retrograde back into Taurus. So 29 degrees of Taurus, that's where the Pleiades are. Within a 2-degree orb, any planet is activated there. All about love, all about divine feminine and feminine wisdom. So very beautiful. And somebody commenting, and sadly I don't know their names to credit them, but they commented on my previous update that within the constellation of the Pleiades, one of the stars is Atlas, who is the father of the Seven Sisters in the Pleiades constellation. And that's really kind of quite strange. And I can't quite get the meaning of that link between 3i Atlas and Uranus being conjunct Atlas in the Pleiades. But there's something here about ignition, because Uranus is all about ignition. Conjunct Sedna, igniting our metamorphosis, which I think is a biological as well as an energetic and galactic metamorphosis. We are right in the mush of the chrysalis. So really fascinating. And I think those are the main things I want to say about the chart, because I'm going to be doing another update on the first half of November in the next few days. So I'll stop sharing here. And Remember that 3i Atlas comes closest to the Earth on the 19th of December, right on that Capricorn solstice. It then becomes closest to Jupiter on the 16th of March, very close to the Aries equinox in March. And that is also, and also Stephen Burns, thank you again, Stephen, reminded us that the cavalry of comets that accompany 3i Atlas are going to start to exit our solar system about the middle of next year. So they're coming in with 3i Atlas, and I understand to have these 6 comets is extremely unusual, all at the same time, and certainly the same timing as 3i Atlas. They really do feel like a cosmic cavalry. And soon after 3i Atlas exits our solar system to who knows where, will it ever come back? You know, we have no idea. It doesn't seem to be on any kind of orbit. That is closely after that can be followed by the exit of the 6 comets. And we really don't understand the meaning of this whole period of time, but for sure, as I have been saying repeatedly, I believe this is the absolute pivot point for humanity's consciousness that's been prophesied by the ancient peoples for many, many thousands of years. And these next 3 months, I think, are going to be extremely activating in that kind of breakdown of the old, and that will continue a little bit into 2026. And then there's this kind of fresh, lighter, new energy that starts to emerge, kind of April, May, going into the middle of the year. But I'll be talking more about that in later videos. Yes, really fascinating. When I was filming videos for Pluto moving into Aquarius, I also talked about every time Pluto moves into Aquarius, it is a paradigm-shattering time during that transit. Now, Pluto is going to stay in Aquarius until January 2044. You know, we've almost got another 20 years to go, 19 years to go. But I think we are absolutely in paradigm-shattering times. And I did expect, because of the difference in the field of energy between 2025 and 2026, that it wasn't going to be linear or logical, our human progression. It was going to be some kind of a catalyst or a game changer or something that was paradigm shattering. But I didn't know what it was. Just the rapid shift in energy suggested to me there was going to be, something that would signify a leap in our consciousness. Now, many people that I'm speaking to right now, many of them you know well, Kelly Kolodny with Archangel Raphael, Dr. David Clements, Nancy Rebecca, and Tucker, many others, and also Richard Rudd, Lee Harris, talking about the new human future. Many people I'm speaking to, and other people I'm speaking to offline as well. They all feel that this is some kind of a game changer in terms of our consciousness. So I'm not alone in this. I do believe that this will increase our psychic sensitivity, activate our third eye, and our heart chakra. And I've had my own particular, very specific, crystal clear and really quite dramatic experiences of that in bright green. But anyway, more of that another time. Now, I do think, as I say, this could bring some geological disruption, and it's all part of Gaia's rebirth, but it's a process we have to go through, like labor pains, to end up with something really beautiful and amazing at the other end. So, and really do remember what I've talked about in many, many videos about when I was doing that basic martial arts course and I was taught to split the builder's plank. And the whole idea was you didn't focus on the obstacle, the builder's plank, you focused on where you wanted your hand to get to, 6 inches below the builder's plank. And that that's such a great guide in life in general, but particularly with 3i Atlas, really focus on the result that you would love to see from 3i Atlas. Because, yes, most certainly all of this is happening out there in the cosmos, but remember the Hermetic principle of as above, so below, the macrocosm and the microcosm. Anything that happens out there is also happening within us. Every time I look at a birth chart, yes, it's a map of the out there, but it's also a map of the in here, of that person's psyche, whoever they are at that moment of birth, which is why I can read a birth chart and suss where people may be at and help them with their self-understanding. So yes, it's an out there, but it's an in here in the same moment. That's exactly what we're going through right now with 3i Atlas. It isn't just an out there, it's an inside job. And be aware of the changes that it's creating in you. Are we becoming more crystalline now? Are we becoming more akin to the light body? Because I do think this is happening quite rapidly. I do think we are becoming more loving and more caring for each other as a result of this. I truly do. The particular experiences that I've had, even in the last few days, have really signaled that to me. And this may be very hard for us to get our heads around, but it's just an idea I want to float, which sounds like an incredibly simple idea. But actually, I think it is profound. And I'm going to be having a conversation with a very interesting lady next week about exactly this question, which is there even an objective reality at all, or is everything a subjective reality? Is everything a subjective reality? Depending on your focus, where you put your focus, depending on your choice, Gemini, Uranus in Gemini, super important as we go through these times, and depending on your frequency. Because just like being tuned into a channel on the radio, we can only hear the music of the channel we're tuned to. If we're tuned to hard rock, we'll only hear hard rock, we won't hear classical. If we're tuned to classical, we'll only hear classical, we won't hear hard rock, but all of those channels are there. And so our subjective experience is down to our lens, the lens with which we see the world and the frequency we are on, and also our expectation in living through that lens. Because if we could really, and this kind of falls out of my ears at times, so I'm not sitting here as a paragon of virtue on this, but I do think if we could really grasp that, and it's something I'm digging into more in my research, that is a total game changer, paradigm shattering thought of how we live our lives. That is utterly empowering. That is total sovereignty, isn't it? So let me just leave you with that